Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Whatcom County Council meeting for Tuesday, October 11th, 2016. Would you please call the roll?
Barbara Brenner.
Here.
Red Brown.
Here.
Barry Buchanan.
Here.
Todd Donovan.
Here.
Ken Mann.
Here.
Satpal Sidhu.
Here.
Carl Weimer.
Here.
Thank you. Would you please rise and join me in the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just a couple quick announcements. If you have your cell phone with you this evening, please put it on vibrate or off. And if you'll be handing out any paperwork during either the public hearing or the open session, please provide a copy to the clerk for their records. We had 3 items we dealt with today in special committee of the whole in executive session. The first one was discussion with county administration regarding a potential property acquisition for park purposes. We had a briefing and there was no action taken. Second item was discussion with Senior Deputy Prosecutor Karen Frakes regarding pending litigation, Hearst et al. Versus Whatcom County on the Growth Management Hearings Board case number 12-2-0013. We were briefed on the Supreme Court, Washington Supreme Court decision on that case, and there was no action taken. During Committee of the Whole, also, there was a strategy planning discussion and positions to be taken regarding collective bargaining. We got a briefing on the strategies to proceed, and there was, again, no action taken. So we will now proceed right into our public hearing. We have several this evening. Audience members who signed up at the back of the room prior to the beginning of our meeting will be called first, and you'll be asked to come down and form a line on either side of the podiums. If you're unable to sign up before the meeting started, don't worry, we will get to you. We'll have a call after those folks have spoken. Each speaker should state his or her name for the record, and you'll be given 3 minutes to speak. Council staff will keep track of the time, and they will give you a 30-second warning, and then they will tell you when your time is up. So our first public hearing is an ordinance repealing Whatcom County Code, Chapter 8.06, Smoking in the Workplace, and establishing Whatcom County Code, Chapter 24.14, Smoking and Vaping in Public Places. Do we have a staff report? We do not. We will open the public hearing.
Joe's from the health department.
Yeah, come on.
Joe Fuller, Program Specialist, Health Department. You've heard about the vaping in public places ordinance over the last couple of months, and appreciate that being on the agenda this evening, and wanted to just formally thank everybody that participated in the community process with our community survey. We had over 600 responses, as well as our public listening session. I think the ordinance is fairly straightforward, as well as the code. Just a few other comments that I wanted to make in terms of around stigma. I think you'll hear from a lot of prevention advocates about some of the concerns around vaping specifically in Whatcom County, but I want to make sure that we maintain that we're kind of a compassionate community and realize there are a lot of people dealing with nicotine addiction. We have people in our families and our friends that are dealing with this. So just wanted to say that, you know, as we have comments, just to keep that in mind. So that's all I have.
Any questions for staff before we get rolling? Okay, we will open the public hearing, and first up is Marjorie Bell, Kathy Peterson, and Yolanda Nuez Hernandez.
Hello. I'm Marjorie Bell, and I wanted to speak in favor of the ordinance that Joe just referred to. I am in favor of vaping and e-cigarettes being regulated much in the same way that cigarettes are in terms of vaping in public. Vaping is essentially the same as smoking in that someone who's vaping is inhaling an incredibly addictive substance. And so to have people vaping in public places, it promotes an unhealthy norm, and I don't think that it belongs in public places. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy?
Good evening, council members. I'm Kathy Peterson, and I get to be the advisor of some amazing students with the Whatcom Health Alliance. Tonight, I'm here with a few student representatives who...
Can you pull the mic closer?
Sure. Tonight, I'm here with student representatives to show our support for the ordinance to expand the smoking in public places to include e-vaping, e-cigarettes and vaping. Our club has met and had in-depth discussions about this ordinance, and tonight we would like to share a few facts each about how our students, what they believe is important for you to know in making this decision. As you know, nicotine is the addictive ingredient that is being vaporized in most of these e-cigs. The younger person is, when they start using a substance, the more likely they are to become addicted. Nicotine also impacts brain development, and research shows that nicotine exposure is a risk factor in use and potential addiction, especially for our youth. Thank you.
Thank you. Yolanda? And then Karina Lindsay and Haley Martin.
Hello, my name is Yolanda Nunez-Hernandez, and I am the president of the Whatcom Health Alliance, and we are in support of the ordinance to expand the smoking in public places policy to include e-cigarettes and vaping. According to the Department of Health, e-cigarette users have diminished lung function, airway resistance, and cellular changes that are similar to smoking tobacco. Also, not only does the FDA not regulate e-cigarettes, but manufacturers are not required to disclose chemicals in their products. And testing has shown disparities between measurements of the nicotine levels and the product labels. We are all in support of this ordinance. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Haley? Oh, I'm sorry, Karina. That was my fault.
Hello, I'm Karina Lindsay, and I'm a student representative from the Whatcom Health Alliance. And in our support of this ordinance, we've learned that youth are being increasingly exposed to e-cigarette marketing. And the CDC reports that between 2011 and 2014, advertising went from 6.4 million to 115 million. And during the same time, national use by high school students increased from 1.5% to 13.4%. Thank you.
Thank you. Haley, and then Riley O'Leary and Cassandra Church.
Hi, I'm Haley Martin, another representative for Whatcom's Health Alliance. In support for expanding the ordinance, we believe that when e-cigarettes are used in public, you can be exposed to the vapor even if you choose not to. As members of Health Alliance, we have all chosen to be drug-free and healthy, so we have chosen not to vape, and so we should not have to be exposed. We believe it's an infringement of our rights and our choice to be healthy. We think that if e-cigarettes and vapes have the same laws as smoking, then it could help. If e-cigarettes and vapes are not as public as they are now, then we believe that it could help not influence kids as much as they do now. For example, my friend a few days ago was with her friend out in public, and he forgot his vape at her house, and they were done hanging out. And since she thought it looked cool, she decided that she would try it, and she posted videos and pictures of her smoking it on social media. We may not be able to stop things like that, but we could hopefully prevent other things from being influenced in public places like that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Riley?
Hello, my name's Riley. I am a recent graduate of Western. I live and work here in the community, and I'm here to support the proposed legislation for e-cigarettes and vaping. Three main reasons. One, because it's irritating to the public. Two, because it has potential health risks to people that are not voluntarily inhaling the vapor. And three, because it establishes a social activity that is unhealthy for future generations. There were two main reasons that the Smoking in Public Places Act was established that I discovered. The first was for fire safety and property value for landlords, but because e-cigarettes don't burn, they don't pose as much of a risk for landlords, and although some have been reported to explode, they're not causing fires every day. The other reason that the Smoking in Public Places Act was established was for public safety and comfort. This is where e-cigarettes are comparable to combustibles. Do you remember walking into a bowling alley and feeling the odor of the smoke cling to your clothes and your hair? It's not really a pleasant smell, something that we are all put off by. E-cigarettes are laced with a delicious smell that is meant to be pleasant, but often it can be overpowering. The odor is a different nature, but can still be irritating. Imagine a restaurant full of mixed flavors of vapor. Smoking in public places was in part banned because it was irritating to the public. E-cigarettes are irritating to the public. The traditional Smoking in Public Places Act was established also because of health risks. Secondhand smoke is something that is comparable to e-cigarettes, as the aerosol that is burned through the e-cig process turns into vapor that can be inhaled. Although it has been shown to be far less dangerous than traditional cigarettes, safer does not mean safe. A study called Secondhand Exposure to Vapors from Electronic Cigarettes found that all the levels of inhalation of secondhand emissions are quite a bit lower than the chemicals from traditional cigarettes, but they are still being inhaled, especially nicotine. That's the one that was found to be the most dangerous, as well as things like formaldehyde, but at lower temperatures, or at higher temperatures burn, sorry. They concluded that using an e-cigarette in indoor environments may involuntarily expose non-users to nicotine. We don't know exactly what the health effects of nicotine exposure are yet, but nicotine is extremely unhealthy through secondhand inhalation. E-cigarettes are a nicotine product. The aerosol that is burned can be inhaled and cause health effects. Thank you.
Thank you. Cassandra, and then that's the end of the sign-up. So anyone else that would like to speak about vaping in public can come on down.
Hello, my name is Cass Church, and I am here tonight with the Whatcom Prevention Coalition in favor of the proposed vaping ordinance. E-cigs and other vaping devices are of great concern to the coalition. While rates of use for youth among traditional cigarettes have been declining over the years, youth use of e-cigarettes has been steadily climbing in the past few years. On the most recent Healthy Youth Survey, a survey that's administered to Washington State youth in grades 6, 8, 10, and 12, approximately 26%, or over 1 in 4 of our 12th graders reported that they had used an e-cig device in the past 30 days. In addition to that, more alarming is that the American Academy of Pediatrics has stated that youth that use e-cigarettes are actually 6 times more likely to use traditional cigarettes. And so tonight's proposed vaping ordinance is a solid step towards limiting youth exposure to e-cigarettes and other vaping devices in public places. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wendy Harris, I sent a letter in. I hope you had a chance to read these. I'm in support of the ordinance. It will bring us in line with the laws that already exist in a lot of other countries, 10 other states, and at least 500 other jurisdictions in the country. One of the big concerns I didn't hear mentioned with regards to vapor cigarettes are what's called VOCs, volatile organic compounds, and they're very small particulates, and we inhale them very deep into our lungs, and they're connected with asthma, respiratory disease, and with sudden heart attacks. And so that may end up being the biggest risk that people are exposed to with these e-cigarettes. And that's the reason the FDA took over regulatory control over e-cigarettes last month, and they're going to be doing more testing. The Department of Commerce has prohibited e-cigarettes on planes, and the letter that I sent you provided a list of a number of other federal agencies that are regulating or controlling and restricting in some way these cigarettes. And pretty much the consensus is we need to treat e-cigarettes the same way we treat regular cigarettes. So I want to thank you for proposing this, and I hope it passes tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. What are the wishes of the council?
Move approval.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Ms. Brenner?
Well, I just want to say, I have spoken to 4 different doctors, and they're pretty different from each other. But to me, this sounds like a good idea, but I wasn't sure enough. And my understanding from the doctors I talked to is that those of us who don't smoke cigarettes are still getting not just the nicotine, but other pollutants by being around it. And we're not even aware. When I'm around cigarettes, I hold my breath till I can get away from it. But with these things, you don't really know, and you're still getting it. And I think it makes sense to treat them all the same at this point.
Anything else? Mr. Mann?
Just a brief note of thanks to our Public Health Advisory Board, who essentially brought this to our attention as an issue, and I'm sure Joe had something to do with that too. So just credit to Joe and the staff and the Public Health Advisory Board for doing a lot of the legwork on this and getting it to this point.
Anything else?
Yeah, I think at this stage in our civilization, it's just absurd that we don't do more to discourage the use of tobacco and cigarettes, particularly amongst minors. And all I can say is, if the council allowed me 2 votes on this one tonight, I'd use both of them in support of this ordinance.
I'm supporting this too. I worked with the Public Health Advisory Board for the past couple of years and it was a very thorough job by the health department in doing surveys and really getting a community feel as how the community felt about this issue. And it was overwhelming that they were in favor of this. So with that, anything else? Please call the roll.
Barbara Brenner,
Yes.
Red Brown,
Yes and yes.
Barry Buchanan.
Yes.
Todd Donovan,
Yes.
Ken Mann.
Yes.
Satpal Sidhu,
Yes.
Carl Weimer.
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
8-0.
8-0. We haven't seen
Our next public hearing is on a resolution approving the Whatcom County 2017 Annual Construction Program. Is there any staff report? I see a no.
Mr. Chair, I would like to ask if we could vote on this by removing R4 and then...
We'll do that when we get to the motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, yeah, as long as you can split it.
Okay, so there's no staff report. I will open the public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to speak regarding the 2017 Annual Construction Program? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Moved.
Second.
Mr. Brown?
So I would like to ask that we remove item number R4 and vote on...
What
the-
page?
Is that the one that's
378.
Yeah, it's on,
Just the thing we did last time.
yeah, that's all.
378?
378.
Is that the Horton Road one?
Yeah. So I'm prepared to vote on anything other than Horton Road.
So we are voting on, there's an amendment being proposed to the motion. And that amendment is to vote on it by removing R4 from the first vote. So does everybody understand that? Ms. Brenner?
Well, I want to vote against R4 anyway. So how do I do that?
Well, it'll be its own independent vote, and you can then cast a vote no.
This is just whether to vote for it separately.
This motion is, this amendment is to remove R4 from this first vote.
So we'll have one vote
Okay.
on it all.
All right.
So this is,
Better.
so let's approve or vote on the amendment first. So all those in favor
Well,
say,
can we talk to it at all?
yeah.
I want to, I don't know why he's going to abstain, but I'm voting against it because that area is already a zoo. It's horrible. And I don't see anything happening that's going to make it easier for people. And apparently Costco is going to be ready to open in a month in that area. And as bad as it's been, it's a level F already. It's going to make it that much worse. And I just don't think we should be doing this.
Any other discussion? So
I
the
don't
motion
know.
is whether or not to vote on this resolution with the exception of R4.
So there was no second.
I second that.
Okay.
The amendment?
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now the motion before us is to, well, we need a new motion.
So I move we consider all of the items except R4.
I second
Did
that.
I'm sorry. Then we, I
This is
move
the
that we,
motion to actually do it.
Just vote for
we vote on the,
on R4.
no, at first we do everything and then we'll come back to it.
We already-
Or did we do, we
Yes.
just, because we just approved the amendment.
We just approved the amendment, so now we vote on the whole show except for R4.
I think that's what I said.
Yeah, it's very confusing. Thanks, Red. Okay, any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Well, I thought you said except for R4.
Yeah, everything except for R4.
I'm voting for everything
Yeah, I
except
know
for
you are.
R4. Why are you looking at me like
Well,
that? I said aye.
7-0 was that vote. Okay, now I'd entertain a motion for R4.
I move that we approve R4.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve R4. Discussion. Ms. Brenner.
Well, just to add a little more to that, you know, the state, going along with the Costco thing, the state was supposed to have a special off-ramp and on-ramp. That isn't even started yet. And I mean, you put Horton through there, you are funneling a lot more traffic right into the middle of the worst part of it. So I don't think we should move ahead with this at all.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Abstain.
We have, that passes 5-0, or 5-1 to 1 abstention. Ms. Brenner opposed and Mr. Brown abstaining. Our next public hearing is an ordinance adopting amendments to Whatcom County Code Title 20 zoning related to commercial industrial land uses in limited areas of more intensive rural development, otherwise known as the LAMERD. Do we have a staff report? We do not. So we will open the public hearing. We have a couple people signed up, Tim Captain and Gary Hanku.
Hello, my name is Tim Captine. I'm the owner of Innotech Process Equipment. We are a locally growing company that was founded to meet the needs of the rapidly changing...
Could you pull that a little closer? Some people can't hear you. Sometimes you got to get real close to it.
Yeah,
Sorry.
okay. We were founded to meet the needs of the rapidly changing agricultural industry for the small fruits and vegetable grower and processors in rural Whatcom County. Our primary focus is serving the local Whatcom County raspberry, blueberry, strawberry, blackberry, and vegetable grower and producer. I live in Whatcom County and have been in this community all my life, as well as the employees that I've had over the 10 years of being in business. It has been extremely difficult to find suitable land and or property that is in the right area to serve our customers and also meet the needs for fire flow, road access, and its location to the customers we serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary Houndcoop.
Thank you, Council. I would like to speak, well, first off, Gary Hancoop, Whatcom County. I am on the Plan Commission, so I am not here on official Plan Commission business, make that real clear per the business rules. I'm here on personal business. I want to speak in favor of the zoning text amendment being proposed, which is the one, number 7, construction contractors, business offices, including outdoor storage of equipment. When we purchased our property on the Guide Meridian 18, 19 years ago, we, of course, checked the zoning out to make sure that we were allowable use in that zone, and then, of course, we applied for building permits. We built our buildings, and then, of course, we've occupied them ever since we built them. Over the years, the zoning has changed, the uses have changed, the landmarks have been formed. There's just been a lot of changes. And along the way, we are no longer a conforming business. I don't think it was intentional. I just think that there was just, many changes. So it puts us out in the cold, so to speak, being non-conforming. So I of course, support the proposed text amendment. It restores our use, provides certainty for the future, and of course, it certainly eases our concerns of, what happens in the future. Also, I do want to speak in favor of the other text amendment as well, which is on the manufacturing fabrication type that Tim spoke of. It isn't clear the way it is currently, and there were changes that were made over the years on that as well, and it just helps clarify that both types of materials can be used, whether it's wood or metals. Okay, and a special thanks to the staff for bringing this forward to the council. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the end of the sign-ups. Is there anyone else that would like to speak with these amendments to Whatcom County Code Title 20?
Wendy Harris. I speak in opposition to this. First of all, I'm really concerned about the timing. I'd like to know, we just did a comp plan update. Why is this being brought forward now? This should have been part of the comp plan. I mean, anytime you're making changes to a LAMR, that's a big deal. I saw this on the agenda a few hours ago, and so I sent an email to it didn't sit well with me, and just to confirm this, I sent a letter to Tim Trahimovich, who's the legal advisor and attorney for FutureWise, and he did respond with a letter to council, but since it came in an hour ago, you probably haven't read it, so I'd like to read this into the record from Tim. Dear council members, I've just learned that tonight you will consider amendments to the LAMR regulations. As you may recall, it took Whatcom County years to bring those provisions into compliance with the Growth Management Act. I'm particularly concerned about new language authorizing staff to authorize similar uses in LAMRs in Whatcom County Code 20.59.150, 20.6.130, 20.61.150, 20.64.130, 20.67.130, and 20.69.130. I fear it could be used to get around the GMA requirement that the LAMRs have had to use the same use in the same area in 1990. I suggest modifying the proposed language to read as follows with my additions underlined below. The zoning administrator may administratively permit other uses similar in nature for the permitted uses listed in Whatcom County Code 20.59.059 or 20.59.150 that the zoning administrator determines to be consistent with the purpose and intent of the district, comma, and now this section's underlined, that a use of the same type existed in the same area on July 1st, 1990, comma, that's the end of his underlined provisions, and have similar effects on surrounding land uses and underlined environment, and can meet the performance standards in the district. Thank you for considering these amendments. Sorry it arrived so late. I'd also like to add, I have concerns about abuse of administrative discretion. It's appropriate for the staff to have administrative discretion, but the
30
hearings
seconds,
board
please.
has held that that has to be subject to objective standards and guidelines, and just allowing the staff to just determine what's similar without there being a public process or any standards in place is an abuse of administrative discretion. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to talk to us about LAMRs? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. What are the wishes of the council?
I'll move approval.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Ms. Brenner?
Well, I appreciate Wendy's concerns, but I think it's way overdue that some of these regulations became more flexible. And I appreciate what staff has done, and they didn't do it in a vacuum. So I do support this very much.
Mr. Donovan?
Yeah, I appreciate Wendy Harris's comments here. I am going to support this, and we had hearings on this before. And I do recall the whole Lammard years of dealing with the Lammard thing, but my read on these are very narrow changes. We can't change the fact that uses that did not exist prior to 1990, that's still in the code. But I'm interpreting this as a very narrow change to what is permitted in the Lammards, and that's why I'm going to support it.
Any other comments? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Red Brown?
Yes.
Barry Buchanan?
Yes.
Todd Donovan?
Yes.
Ken Mann?
Yes.
Satpal Sidhu?
Yes.
Carl Weimer?
Yes.
Barbara Brenner?
Yes.
That passes unanimously. Our next public hearing is on an ordinance amending certain election precinct boundaries and approving new precinct boundaries as necessary to the Book of Election Precinct Maps. We have no one signed up for this, but we would invite anybody that would like to speak to this to come forward, please. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing. I'd entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Barry Buchanan?
Yes.
Todd Donovan?
Yes.
Ken Mann?
Yes.
Satpal Sidhu?
Yes.
Carl Weimer?
Yes.
Barbara Brenner?
Yes.
Red Brown?
Yes.
That passes unanimously. Our last public hearing is an ordinance amending chapters 20.51, 20.71, 20.80, 20.85, 20.97, and Title 21 of the Whatcom County Code to make low-impact development a stormwater and land use strategy that strives to mimic natural hydrologic processes, the preferred approach to site development by minimizing impervious surfaces, native vegetation loss, and stormwater runoff. Do we have any staff report? Seeing none, I'd open the public hearing. We have one person signed up, David McLean.
Hello, my name is David McLean. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can. Can you guys hear him?
I want to comment on a very narrow portion of the proposal, and that portion is tree removal not associated with development. Okay, and the new ordinance is very similar to the old ordinance. And the old ordinance was not protective of the watershed in Lake Whatcom, which is where I live. The trees in the watershed are frequently removed without getting permits, without any review, and even when the county is informed of the tree removal and process, little or nothing is done about it. The people who remove trees, the tree service people, realize that the permitting is not enforced, and so they're happy to remove trees without a permit. In fact, the Kiwi tree removal service guy had an interesting discussion a few months ago where he was removing a large cedar tree in sight of the lake. I commented that this was in the watershed and a permit was required. His response was, I don't have time for that. I have a contract to remove this tree. It's coming down. And besides, if something comes of this, I have absolutely no liability associated with that. And you know what? He's right. Because times where we've reported people removing trees without permits, nothing was done. Okay, and if you read the ordinance, there's essentially no penalty for ignoring the ordinance. And so I am speaking against that portion because it is not protective of the watershed. And so while forest is being converted into lawn, millions of dollars of my tax money, or our tax money, is being spent on stormwater improvements. So in essence, our tax money is subsidizing the people who are damaging the watershed. It should be the other way around. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the end of the signups for this public hearing. Anyone else like to speak?
Wendy Harris. I just had some concerns that this ordinance is just focused on trees. And this is an LID project, and there's a lot more involved in LID than that. And one of the major things involved besides just the tree retention is the soil quality, and how well the soil infiltrates. And that's something that soil can only really be amended before you build a house. After the house is built and landscaping's put down, it's almost impossible to go back and redo the soil amendment. And I didn't see anything in there, and we really want to make sure that we're working with the hydrology of the site. And it's really a little more holistic and connected than just looking at tree cover. And the other concern I have is the tree cover talks about tree canopy, but that's not how a naturally functioning forest works. There's 3 levels to it. There's a tree canopy, there's the undershrub, and then there's the forest floor. And all of them work together to, absorb and to infiltrate, and I don't have my notes in front of me for the 3 different functions. But if we're just focusing on tree canopy, we're already only picking up a third of what a holistic forested system does in terms of full site infiltration. And if we don't have proper soil in place, that's not going to work. So what I looked at was a little too simplistic, and the real test is whether or not there's any water that's leaving the site. We want on-site full infiltration. And my understanding of LID, and I did work on the LID project that the county had for Birch Bay, is it was a little more complex than just that. And it also involved things like swales and rain gardens, and just maybe changing the topography, and all of the, and I know there was a big concern about cost I saw being raised, and sometimes this is more expensive up front, but over the long term, it's actually very cost effective because you don't have the maintenance costs that you would normally have with end of pipe treatment. So I really do support LID, and
30 seconds,
it's not a
please.
matter of supporting it, it's a requirement now under the law that we must meet. But I question whether what we're bringing forward is really effective and if it's going to work. And so I'd like to hear some explanation of how the staff is sure that this meets the full on-site infiltration standards that it's supposed to, just based on tree canopy. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak about LID? Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing. What's the wishes of the council?
Move approval, get it going.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Mr. Brown?
Can staff comment on this? I just have a couple of questions.
Yes. Mark Personius with PDS.
Mr. Pisonius, 2 questions. One is there any restriction on us amending this later on? Is there?
Amending it later on?
Yeah.
No.
No. So this doesn't fall under one of those calendars where we can only do it once a
No.
year?
This is a development regulation. You can amend it at any time.
Okay. So the second, I thought the earlier speaker's comment is that the people who really control the removal of trees, particularly in the watershed, can suffer no penalty. And I'm just wondering, and maybe not tonight, but I'm just wondering whether we want to consider holding people who should know the regulations and are the ones doing the actual work, facilitating the removal of mature trees in the watershed, whether they should be held accountable.
Yeah, I think it absolutely behooves us when we adopt new regulations, no matter what they are, that we do some outreach to those folks that are going to have some bit of responsibility for carrying out those regulations. So I certainly think we could do outreach to contractors and to tree service folks about these regulations, and particularly sensitive about the enforcement issue in terms of the watershed.
But I'm wondering whether we want to consider going a step further, which is if a fully informed contractor tree doctor. It knows that they're not allowed to do this and they do it anyway, whether they should be held personally accountable.
That's, yeah, would be something we could talk about.
Ms. Brenner, Mr. Donovan, then Mr. Weimer.
Well, I would think it would be the property owner who's responsible if something like that happens.
That's typically where the responsibility falls,
Yeah.
is on the property owner.
Well, I have some problems with this. One of them is, it's about the, having a treeless buffer to protect against fires. And I was very surprised and disappointed on the staff's response. It said, tree retention regulations would only apply in the special watershed districts, not in the majority of the county.
Right.
Sudden Valley is in the special watershed district, but they're the ones, they're the ones who they came to us and have a big concern about having an adequate fire line. And I think it's important that we allow them that. The other thing is that gentleman talked about there's not enforcement. I do think if we're going to have rules, they have to be enforced. And I am a huge proponent of LID. My whole property's LID. We were on Sustainable Connections tour of low impact development. I think it's a wonderful idea, but I just also feel like this has become more like punitive rather than rewarding. And one of them was about the extension of the DOE manual. I do think that's going to be a real problem to a lot of people who are not in certain areas. And I just would rather we don't do that. So let's see. Oh, and the failing septic, again, staff says does not believe that this would be a prevalent occurrence. Well, I guess I disagree. I do think it would be prevalent. I think septic systems being safe and not being undermined by roots and things like that are very important. And with what's been happening with the new rules, a lot more places are going to have a bigger problem putting in a legal septic system. So I've got problems. Thanks for listening.
Question about the enforcement stuff. So in addition to whose responsibility would be the tree firm or the property owner, I'm interested in how much staff time this would potentially take would staff be doing some level of enforcement here? And the main thing that I think would potentially be important to make this work, we talked about the cumulative loss of tree canopy and trying to track that as of January 1st, 2017, using aerial photos, so somebody couldn't just keep taking whatever percent off each year. Would that, do you have the staff resources to have people looking at satellite pictures and tracking these things?
We can do that on an annual basis, yes.
On a property by property basis?
Well, I think the resolution is there now, and especially once we get our new pictometry, that we'll have a level of detail to do that. I think we'll have the staff resources to do that on a watershed level on an annual basis. Plus, we did some work earlier this year with the Fish and Wildlife Department, and they have very high level photo imagery.
And we get those updated every year?
Well, I think they get it every couple of years, and they did some good work about measuring what the actual loss of riparian canopy was, and then we vetted it, found out there were where it was conversions of land and so forth that were normal, and those were where we lost. Sometimes it was the river that took out some trees, and sometimes it was because of man-made things. So we could really get down to a level of detail of figuring out when we lost canopy, why we lost canopy. So I'm pretty comfortable that we have the resources and the data to do that.
But then it gets back to so we find somebody's exceeding X percentage over a cumulative period. What's the enforcement then?
Right. So we have a couple of watershed planners that go out. Our typical enforcement regimen is complaint driven. We can't, we're not out there looking at everybody's property and counting their trees. We're not there. We don't have the resources for that. So I think the outreach effort is probably the more effective route. Where we go out and we talk to property owners and we talk to the tree service folks and the contractors and just let them know, hey, these permit requirements are here. We've got staff that's ready to expedite these kinds of issues. In fact, that we were very sensitive to that in writing these regulations about the tree removal because we know it's a sensitive subject and we're not getting probably not getting a lot of, folks getting those permits. So we know that's a bit of an uphill battle, but I think we've got that's the best shot at it.
Mr. Weimer?
Yeah, I just had a clarifying question because the gentleman talked about how there was all this tree removal going on in the watershed that it wasn't supposed to. Aren't we just adding this tree removal section to the watershed for the first time? I mean, I suspect that some of it's already captured under shorelines and other things.
It was already there. We're sort of clarifying it about what the procedure is in the process for getting the permit, whether you need it as a part of a development activity or you don't. You do it without a development activity permit trigger. It's already there. It only applies in those watersheds. And I would add that based on that data that we did have Fish and Wildlife analyze. I think we showed something like a 1 or 2% canopy loss countywide over a 5 or 6 or 7 year period. So we didn't see any shocking numbers that there was a shocking loss of canopy or habitat. So
thanks.
Any further, Ms. Brenner?
The stakeholders, were all these stakeholders that were part of this committee, are they all are they all local?
My understanding is they are, yes.
Okay.
Anything else? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Todd Donovan,
Yes.
Ken Mann,
Yes.
Satpal Sidhu,
Yes.
Carl Weimer,
Yes.
Barbara Brenner,
No.
Red Brown,
Yes.
Barry Buchanan.
Yes. That passes 6-1 with Councilmember Brenner opposed. Okay, that concludes our public hearings for the night. Now we'll move into our open session. During the open session, audience members will have up to 3 minutes to address the council on any issue relevant to county business. Before you start your comment, please state your name and your topic of interest for the record. And if your last name is complicated, please spell it so the clerk can get it correct in the record. And make sure to speak into the microphone so we can hear you. So I'd like to open the public session. Come on down.
I promise I won't read every page. Good evening, council members. I'm Glenn Smith with Washington State Groundwater Association. So think statewide, think 70-year-old organization consisting of water well drilling professionals. I'm here tonight to talk in regard to the Hearst FutureWise versus Whatcom County. Recent state Supreme Court decision has just been made. It's a situation where the county has been very, very reactive in regard to this process of dealing with rural water issues, dealing with legal availability to water, and getting out in front of serious issues that are occurring across the state. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to go through, if I can, in very abbreviated fashion, every bundle of paper here that I have in this box. And it consists of dealing with the State Department of Ecology, counties. In fact, I sat in Councilman Todd Donovan's chair here about 2 years ago, one Saturday morning, dealing with rural water issues and the concerns of a whole lot of citizens. Half this room was filled with these citizens on exempt wells, very, very concerned about their properties. A chronology of recent water well exempt drilling activity dealing with Kittitas County. We go back to 2007. We look at Kittitas County getting out in front of this. Kittitas County argued with the Department of Ecology for about 3 to 4 years, vehemently dealing with the water issues in that county, sidestepping GMA, sidestepping Pollution Control Hearings Board, sidestepping special interests, of course, dealing with environmental groups. And as a result of that, after about 4 years of serious efforts, including litigation at the Supreme Court level here in Washington, they finally caved in and said, you know, we need to get proactive as a county.
We need to get out in front of these water issues. We need to develop water banking. We need to develop sources as far as for mitigation to grow our county and to deal with these rural water issues very, very effectively. That is the first big point that I want to raise.
30 seconds, please.
With this group is the fact that you've got to be out in front on these rural water issues going forward. We play very heavily with the Department of Ecology, with county groups. We have formed water groups that deal with rural water interests as far as dealing with exempt wells on those water issues, as well as with counties dealing with rural water issues and what they can expect through the Department of Ecology in carrying out their water plans within their respective counties.
Time.
So my time is up.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to just close by saying Washington State Groundwater Association, consisting of drillers, hydrologists, hydrogeologists, very, very experienced people, can help the county begin a process of getting out in front and getting proactive on the recent state Supreme Court decision. I thank you.
Thank you.
Could you please leave your name and number with
I
the
will.
clerk? Thanks.
Anyone else like to speak during the open session?
Hi there. I'm Larry McCarter, and I own Recycling and Disposal Services. I started that 20 years ago, and today we have 35 employees, and we handle 75% of the county's waste. Last year we did over 100,000 tons, and we processed $11 million of business, and I'm happy to note that about $3 to $4 million stayed in our county because I'm local and I own the business, and we spend it locally. I'm here tonight. I know you have a comp plan to look at, and I want to encourage you to approve the solid waste management plan because I see it as a good document that encourages recycling. And recycling is the core of our business, and in fact, it's the reason I have all of my employees is to not ship waste to the landfill. Being a local owner, I'm motivated to not landfill. And so that's what we do. The other thing that's in the plan that makes the plan such a good plan is it does emphasize recycling, and there's two things that we do in our community to recycle. And the first thing that everybody really talks about usually is curbside. Curbside is a fascinating program that has all of the bins, and we do lots of good work there. What's something that you need to know is that RDS recycles 4 to 5 times as much waste as all of the curbside collected in the county. We did 20,000 tons of waste we diverted. The curbside did 5,000. So the comp plan protects the recycling that happens at the transfer stations, and you guys need to know that your plan is working and it's keeping money from going to the landfills and waste. And my 35 employees appreciate you supporting recycling. So thank you.
Anyone else?
Can I
Yes,
just- You should listen to the tape of our meeting today when we talked about it. You were mentioned.
Oh, good. I hope.
Okay.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Start moving that side more.
Good evening, Council. My name is Chet Dow, 5491 Woodfern Way, Bellingham, and I'm speaking tonight on behalf of Common Threads Northwest, which is a watchdog group dedicated to informing the public about excesses sometimes visited on that public by government. Last November, the people of Whatcom County approved several amendments to our county home rule charter, including Propositions 1 and 9. Proposition 1 called for election of our council representatives, you guys, and that was to be done by council district. It was referred to the voters by our elected Charter Review Commission after months of deliberation and public input. Proposition 9 was the proposition that called for 5 fair and equal districts, and it had a somewhat different legislative history. It was referred to the voters by passage of County Council's Ordinance Number 2015-029, which ordinance was feverishly rushed through Council's process for passing an ordinance. Haste makes waste. And as a result of the rush to bring the ballot measure proposing 5 new council districts to the ballot at the last minute possible, Council failed to pay attention to many important details when they passed ordinance number 2015-029. Just a few of these very significant details are outlined in our letter, which I just handed around to the Whatcom. The letter was to the Whatcom County prosecutor, and I've left a copy with the county council clerk. As a consequence of these errors and omissions and failure to pay attention to detail before and after passage of Proposition 9, Council has violated several provisions of our county home rule charter,
30 seconds, please.
county code, and state law. For example, Section 8.20 of the charter says that an amendment to the charter approved by the voters shall be effective 10 days after the election has been certified. Charter Section 4.41 and state law speak to when the process of redistricting must take place. It was ignored during the process. There are a number of other provisions in county code and the charter that are being violated as we speak. So the letter covers that, and I'm sure that the prosecuting attorney's office will take a close look at that. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak?
Yes, good evening, Council. I'm Ron Brunsma, and I'd like to comment on the Public Works, Health, and Safety Committee earlier today, the recommendations of the Council. Item 2, the resolution requesting the County Executive instruct the Planning and Development Services Department to convene a stakeholders group to review the current and proposed mitigation requirements related to the placement of residential septic tanks. I have a home that I own, and I had the unfortunate experience of having to replace the septic system. Figured out it was going to cost me about $15,000. By the time I was done, it was over $20,000. And then I found out they told me I needed a land disturbance permit. So I went into planning and I got my permit for $600. And then I was told that I would need an environmental consultant to go out and review the site. And I contacted an environmental consultant, and they said that would be $2,500, please. And then the planning told me that, well, there's a $345 fee, and then there's another $345 fee for reviewing this report, and then I believe there was another $600 fee. So in trying to improve the environment by replacing a septic system, I found out I was liable for another nearly $2,000 in county fees, $2,500 to an environmental consultant, and then if they found that any mitigation was needed, which meant I plant a couple trees out in my hay field, that'd probably be another $3,000. The ironic thing is that the drain field for this septic system, if it were to fail or if there was nothing there, the water would flow the opposite direction of where they'd claim a wetland is. So I'm, just with my personal experience, I'm certainly recommending review of this policy, because if a person, especially somebody on limited resources, if they spend $20,000 to replace a septic system, and then they find out they're literally being penalized for doing it, I urge the council to review that.
Thank you.
Oh, and also I want to wish a belated happy birthday to Councilmember Brenner.
Thank you.
Come on down.
That's just a perfect segue into what I want to say. If there's one theme in county government, everywhere you go, this morning at the PUD, stormwater regulations, critical areas, vacation rentals, comp plan, it's regulation, and sometimes over-regulation. At the county planning commission meeting here a few months ago, as they were struggling with the Lahar thing, a very wise commissioner said, as they were struggling for hours, that we have to take into consideration what these regulations are doing on the ground to people's lives. Very wise, because there was all sorts of things, and since that time I've even heard of more situations. And I want to say thank you for a session today. It was the most positive time, and I don't really understand all the fire code stuff. You know, it's not my area of expertise. I've heard it in terms of regulation at the Planning Commission and lots of different places in county government. But I thought it was a session where, well, and at the last meeting, Mr. Mann, Councilman Mann, actually said to the fire commissioner or the fire, whatever his title is, perhaps we have too many regulations because on the ground it has affected you. And today in the session, Councilman Brown had experience and he knew how it affected his life. And when that gentleman, I was out of the chamber when this man, I don't really know who he was, but when he was giving testimony, you took that testimony. You took some points from Linda Twitchell, and I don't know what they were, but you worked together. You had experience, and Councilman Satpal Sidhu came with some points. And it was like county government should work. And I wanted to say thank you. Another subject I wanted to approach, and I know my time is out.
30 seconds, please.
But the jail. My goodness, if you're concerned about the cost of the jail, think of the cost in time. The land that was purchased, the DLR work, the cost of this report that was given today, the $28,000, they recommended that the people should know that there's a need for a jail. And remember the session that you had questioned the integrity of the executive because he spent $28,000. So anyway, thank you for your time, but I thank you for the session today. It was good. And I didn't even understand all the particulars, but the attitude and the working together was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak?
Hi, good evening. I didn't plan to speak at all, but I'm a little sorry. My name is Lurleen Hammer, and I'm a little surprised that there aren't more people speaking out about the Hearst versus FutureWise and the Supreme Court hearing because a couple of things. At breakfast the other day on Sunday, I had breakfast with about 6 different couples, all of them that live in the county who have family and children, friends that have property that have not been able to build on their property yet. For instance, one of our friends has a daughter. The well is in the on the property. They're getting ready to build, but now there's a concern that they'll even be able to get a building permit. We have a granddaughter who has a piece of property. Septic and drain field are in, the well is in. Can she build? What happens to these properties that are assessed at a fair market value? And if they can't build on it, are they going to be continued to be assessed and taxed on that property? And if not, who's going to take the burden of those taxes then? The rest of us are? What is the council going to be able to do to address the issue? How can we as property owners and family and friends that have properties affected by this work with you to do something? And I'm just surprised that there aren't more people speaking out about it, because we have a contractor friend who's in the process of working on plans for one of his clients on a 5-acre parcel. The well is in, they're in the middle of the design. What do? These are practical issues that are facing our community and the residents. And I would really like to see if you can address some of that this evening, or where do we go from here? So I thank you for your time.
I know your name. Leave your number, please, Lurleen.
Okay. With her?
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? If you want to speak during the open session, come on down and line up so we can get an idea how many folks we have.
Wendy Harris. I'd like to provide a reality check. We don't have too few environmental regulations. I mean, we don't have too many. We have too few. And we're not paying enough. We're moving the impacts of our actions into the future. And that future doesn't look very bright. When scientists look at it, they're worried about the survival of the human species. That's it's a big deal, the future of the human species. We are now at a point where we have so altered this planet that they're not sure that the human species can survive beyond 100 years. It's very significant. And the reason we've gotten there is not a death by 1,000 cuts, a death by millions and millions of cuts. It's communities like ours that are doing things that are altering the environment. And we're not thinking about it in a larger scale and what the global impacts are, because we're humans and we care about our community members, and they come to us and they're hurting and we want to help. But we really need a bigger perspective on this. We've got to help the planet. We've got to help this planet survive, because I can tell you right now, if you don't have clean air and you don't have clean water and you don't have clean soil, jobs aren't going to matter, money's not going to matter, not much is going to matter. And I think we really need to put the fundamental things first, and that is making sure that we're taking care of the environment. And I just get really upset listening to this very one-sided view of, how does this affect me? This doesn't help me. When we have regulations that protect water, whether it's groundwater or surface water, that protect air quality, that protect trees, that any other provisions that are for public health and safety, they benefit all of us. And those benefits are much bigger than anything that you can measure financially. And I really struggle with the disconnect that I see between what we did in the comp plan and what we plan to do in the critical area ordinance and what's going on in the real world. Because in the real world, we're killing this planet. But when you read the comp plan and when you read the critical area ordinance, none of that is in there.
30 seconds, please.
Where is the sense of reality? We need to look beyond our little community, and we need to stop worrying so much about how much things cost, because that is actually the cost of actually doing things. The cost is huge, and we haven't been paying the cost. And it's the fact that we've been pushing those costs into the future that we don't know if this planet's going to continue on for 3 generations. So we need to step up and be responsible. And I hope that the buck stops here.
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Jerry Peterson, Whatcom County. Lurleen, I appreciate your comments, and you do have support on my end. as well as Wendy. I appreciate everything you're saying, that there does need to be more that has to be done. So I'm not just a concerned citizen. I am a county resident, but I am also a licensed well driller. The Hearst case affects the very profession that I'm invested in. The issue of water availability, particularly that of exempt wells for groundwater withdrawal, is based upon studies involving in-stream flow that is flawed when it discounts adequate data of collection of wells in the area to substantiate the premise that a gallon of water out of a well is a gallon of water out of a stream. As a well driller, I deal with water availability every day. It's my job. It's what I do to make a living. We meticulously record, file, and maintain data on the wells we construct. I have drilled wells near lakes, rivers, streams, creeks, and the ocean. And in the thousands of feet that have penetrated the earth around the county, I have been unable to make a correlation that the water in the well is a direct impact on the water bodies. On the contrary, the static water level, the resting water level in the well, is vastly different in the elevation regarding the water level of those water bodies. They don't measure. However, my point becomes moot to the ears of those making in-stream flow studies because it doesn't fit their models. It becomes models are leaving out the most important factor in the equation, the well. The data that we collect is discounted because it's only counted as a head count of the wells based upon the 5,000 gallons a day exempt status. They don't take into consideration the actual construction and the findings that we create. This is known as bad science. Good science is performed through good observation, whereby all available data is collected to arrive at a justified and quantifiable conclusion. Otherwise, it's merely a theory. Now let's talk about the economical impact of a moratorium on well drilling, because I'm really not worried about my job. We do lots more than well drilling. We do well remediation, we do pump services, so there's many more things that we can keep going on. However, we are the first stage in development of a property. If a well isn't created, availability of water is not justified,
30
and
seconds,
a house
please.
cannot go in. So when that happens, as it did in Kittitas County, people will rezone their properties. They will take it from being a viable property for development and turn it back into open space. That means a reduction in the tax base, which means a reduction in the revenue for the county, and an economical tailspin that will take us over 7 years to recover from, as it did Kittitas County. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Last call.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Roger Hawley. Live in Whatcom County. My family's been good stewards of land in this county for over 100 years. Started farming in Bellingham in mid-1800s. We're good stewards of land, and water is one of the most important things we have. Without water, our land is worthless. And this new lawsuit brought by these people is just, I'm well over retirement age, and we're thinking of selling 5 acres to pay off some debt and build, have a little nest egg to retire on. We just listed our property. We're in the process of getting a well drilled. Now what are we going to do? Worthless property. It's just, I realize, there's plenty of water in this county. As a matter of fact, where our water is, it's supposedly Fraser River water. Because the Fraser River used to run, Nooksack was a tributary to the Fraser River many years ago. Anyway, just hope you consider the effect that this is going to have on hundreds of people like me in the county, and our kids and grandkids, and the tax. And I think Skagit County's having a problem with their taxes because they've got 5,000 some acres that are lots that are now unbuildable, and their taxes went down. So it's somebody's going to pay the freight on that. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will close the open public session and move to the Finance Committee.
Mr. Chair, the Whatcom County Finance and Administrative Services Committee met today and we considered items through 1 through 5, although item 2 was withdrawn. So I present items 1, 3, 4, and 5 for approval. These all received unanimous recommendation from the committee, and I so move.
Okay, we have that motion before us. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Sorry.
This, I'm supporting this, but I'm going to come back with a proposal to change the convention center fund to the hotel lodging tax fund.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah, and my apologies, actually, item 3 was done as the Flood Control District Board of Supervisors, so we should vote on that separately. So I withdraw my motion and change it to items 1, 4, and 5. 2 is withdrawn and 3 is for the flood control zone.
Okay, you're saying number 3?
Number 3 is as the flood control, we were voting as the flood control zone district board of supervisors.
I didn't have that in
Do we have to do that separately?
Yeah.
I don't know, do we? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're, the motion is for items 1, 4, and 5. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes, those pass unanimously. Now we have number 3.
Mr. Chair, number 3 was to request approval for the county executive to award bid number 16-50 and enter into a contract for the 2016 Swift Creek Removal Project to low bidder Strider Construction in the amount of $357,724.50, with the council voting as the Whatcom County Flood Control Zone District Board of Supervisors. This received a recommendation of 3-0, and I so move.
Okay, discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously.
Mr. Chair, the next item was an ordinance closing the Superior Court Fourth Judge Courtroom Renovation Project Fund. This received a unanimous approval, and I so move.
Okay, we have that motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Ken Mann,
Yes.
Satpal Sidhu,
Yes.
Carl Weimer,
Yes.
Barbara Brenner,
Yes.
Rudd Brown,
Yes.
Barry Buchanan.
Yes.
Todd Donovan,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, the next item was a resolution ordering the cancellation of unclaimed checks more than 2 years old. This received unanimous approval, and I so move.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
We don't need a second, it's coming from the committee. So any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Mr. Chair, there's nothing else from finance.
Okay, we'll move to Public Works, Health and Safety, and et cetera.
Okay, resolution adopting an update to the Whatcom County Comprehensive Solid and Hazardous Waste Management Plan. We held this in committee with a request to the city of Bellingham to explain some issues dealing with their draft contract that's coming up for city waste that seems to contradict our plan, and we'd like to hear from the city. And also Larry McCarter, who was here, hopefully he'll listen because he was mentioned and we need some more information from him too. The other issue was, oops, that's yours. Here I am. Resolution requesting the county executive instruct the Planning and Development Services Department to convene a stakeholders group to review the current proposed mitigation requirements related to the placement of residential septic systems. This got tabled on a 2-to-1 vote. I voted against it. I don't think we should have passed it.
So you have nothing to recommend to the council?
No, unfortunately.
Okay. Planning?
Yes, we had 2 things in planning. One was an ordinance adopting the current state building code and repealing the existing Title 15 of the Whatcom County Code. That was pulled from consideration this evening with the intent of holding a public hearing on it. And actually in committee today, we asked that it comes back to committee for some more information in 2 weeks, and we'll worry about the public hearing at that point. So the public hearing's been put off a little bit. The second one was a resolution forwarding draft shoreline master program amendments to the Department of Ecology for review, and that comes forward recommended 2-to-1 that we hold on that to schedule a public hearing before we send it on to the Department of Ecology, and that passed the committee 2-to-1, so I so move.
Okay, we have a motion to table for a public hearing. We don't
second.
need a second, that's
Okay.
from committee. Do we have any discussion?
No.
Mr. Weimer?
I was the one that voted against that, and I'm going to vote against it again this evening if we have a motion to schedule a public hearing. We don't need to have a public hearing on this. We've talked about these amendments a lot. It will have a public hearing when it comes back from ecology and we get to the Title 21 changes. So I don't think a public hearing is needed at this time, and I think we should just move the resolution forward.
Ms. Brenner?
Well, it's going to be very inefficient to do it that way. You send it to ecology, they make all their changes or do whatever they're going to do, and then we bring it back, and then we have a public hearing on something ecology's already approved. I think there's going to be a lot less consideration from some council members about really keeping an open mind and having a public hearing and listening to comments when it's already been through the ecology process. Seems to me we should have the public hearing first and then send that to ecology and let them have at it.
Mr. Brown?
If I remember correctly, this did not receive a recommendation, is that right, from the committee?
Yeah, there was a recommendation that we hold a public hearing before we send it to ecology.
Okay. So you're recommending we don't, and I second that recommendation.
You don't second it. It came
Well,
from
you're moving it forward.
I moved what the committee recommended, which was that we hold a public hearing on it before it goes to ecology.
And he's speaking against that motion.
I'm speaking against it, as I did this morning.
Right.
Any other discussion? Ms. Brenner?
Yeah, we had people asking us to hold a public hearing, and a number of people thought, well, we've already had a public hearing, but we haven't. We've had discussion on this, but we haven't had a public hearing. This is like so inconsequential to allow people to speak to something before it goes to ecology, so that when it comes back from ecology, we don't have to go through the process all over again. Unless people are just going to go, oh, well, ecology said this, so let's just vote for it. I mean, I don't think that's fair.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Weimer that this has to go to a public hearing when it goes through the ordinance phase anyway. We've had a lot of discussion, so I will vote against this resolution. And then if Mr. Wyman wants to put forward a resolution to move this forward, I would second it.
Any further discussion on the motion to hold for a public hearing? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Oh, no, sorry, not I.
No,
To
the-
hold, oh,
the vote
to
is
hold for a.
hold. The vote is to
Hold for a public hearing.
Yes.
Aye.
All right, let's do that again.
Okay, sorry.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No. That passes 4-3 with Weimer, Brown, and Buchanan opposed. All right. Next up is council appointments to boards, commissions, and committees. The first one is a nomination and appointment to fill 2 vacancies on the Acme Van Zant Flood Subzone Advisory Committee. The applicants are Galen Smith and John Stevens.
I move approval by oh, does it have to be the person from that? No more it doesn't. I move both applicants by acclamation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Mr. Chair, to avoid any potential conflicts, I also move it as the at-large representative.
What?
If there's any conflicts about districting, I move it forward as an at-large representative.
Did he have to do that?
These do not have to be nominated by district.
Okay, but can be. So, I mean, so I could do it. Well, I did it already.
Okay. Thanks for your diligence, Mr. Brown. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Next one is executive appointments to boards, commissions, and committees. Request confirmation of the county executive's appointment of Lonnie Ram
I
to
move confirmation.
Yeah, I second.
Lodging Tax and Advisory
If
Committee.
it needs a second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion?
She's terrific.
She's great.
She is great.
Yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Introduction items. Do we have a motion to introduce?
I'll move introduction.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second for introduction of these 3 items. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0. Other committee reports? Mr. Weimer?
Yeah, natural resources. This morning, we had one item, and it was just a discussion of how better to communicate with Cherry Point Industries, and we've set up a process for allowing those industries to come in and talk with us about what they do currently, where they're getting their feedstocks, what they're planning to export, and future plans if they want to share that, just so we have a better sense of what's going on out there as we move forward on looking at a variety of amendments to the Cherry Point UGA.
Okay. Any other committee reports? Other items of business? Seeing none. What about council member updates?
Nothing.
Ken's got glasses.
I got glasses.
Yeah, I like them.
Thanks, Mr. Brown.
Okay.
I got one. Yeah,
got one too.
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Brown.
So two items. One is I attended as a council representative to the Whatcom board, and I just want to bring to attention that it looks that we're likely that we're either going to have to spend significant money relative to the value of the building to repair the 911 centre, or we're going to have to build a new one. Actually, the recommendation was to build a new one. But even if we were to decide today to build a new one, we'd still have to spend money on repairing the old one until that's ready to take over. And so that was the issue with Whatcom, and then the Whatcom Council of Governments did a presentation in which they have had to due to a significant reduction in their revenues, they're cutting back their staff fairly significantly as well. So,
I got a quick question on the first item.
Yep.
Was there any talk about moving the 911 center to the Olympic, the new building out by the airport?
So we've discussed that in previous meetings. The challenge with that is it would require 911 centers have a very heavy-duty seismic component to the buildings. To be understandable, they've basically got to withstand anything. The problem with the emergency center is it's not up to seismic standards. So we would have to spend a significant amount of money to meet the national 911 standards for that building, and that would be a building that we didn't own. So the proposals were to build a new building in the existing site and then demolish the old one, or a proposal actually I asked them to consider, which was to building it at a different location and then considering selling the existing site. So if that made better financial sense.
Okay, other council member updates, Ms. Brenner. Hello, Your Highness.
Thank you. I disagree. I would rather us get some more financial information on that. I think having all of our emergency management services in one location, especially the airport, is a really good idea. So that would be great to have that, Mark or Tyler, have that presented in Public Works Committee at some point. I'd love to hear that. Thanks.
Mr. Donovan.
I have some positive news. We were so late in our last meeting that nobody wanted to do any updates. But I attended the Drayton Harbor Shellfish Committee meeting, and they have had a lot of success with both regulatory programs and the PIC program, and volunteers monitoring and improvements in water quality that are going to lead to some pretty exciting announcements. I'm not sure. I'm going to leave it to them to announce that. But it was really positive to see that all these things we talk about here in terms of efforts to try to improve water quality are showing up on the ground or in the water as working. And more oysters. That's kind of the bottom line. So.
Mr. Sadhu?
I want to bring attention to the newspaper article, Bellingham Herald about last week, about 4 or 5 days ago, about the events in city of Bellingham more than 100 years ago. And there was a small documentary which was mentioned in the paper. It's called We Are Not Strangers. It's on YouTube. It's called We Are Not Strangers. I would just encourage people to watch it and learn more about our past history. Thank you.
Okay, with no other business before the council, first of all, thanks for everybody coming out tonight, and we are adjourned.
We are adjourned.